back again to my A to Z video series on topics to do with pregnancy and perinatal mental health. Today I want to talk about H for Hyperemesis Gravidarum. If you don't know what that is, then you're lucky. Most of us who've had it know what it is. It's sometimes shortened to hyperemesis or just HG for short. I tend to just call it hyperemesis because that's what I call it. What is it? It's severe morning sickness. All day, all effing night sickness. It's just vomiting and nausea until you can't stop, and nothing relieves it, sometimes not even medication. So for me, it started around about week 4 or 5 actually. Just even before I took a pregnancy test, I felt sick. So that was a bit of a giveaway. And from there, once the vomiting started, it didn't really stop until, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm 22 weeks pregnant now. I think it's finished, but I'm not sure. Severe morning sickness it's just really, really hard to cope with. So I thought I would do a little bit of a video on how to cope with it that I found useful. Remembering I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a psychologist. So this is pretty general advice, but you never know, it might help somebody. So let's get to it. At the height of my hyperemesis, I was vomiting 10 times a day, probably. And there was one day where it went into the night as well. I had a really rough day. I hid the Hungry Caterpillar book from my 18-month-old daughter because I just couldn't stand to look at the food. I turned on the TV thinking, oh, that'll distract me. And there you go, there's some woman rubbing a countertop with a raw chicken breast. I turned the channel and there's someone else like doing an ad for dishwasher tablets talking about cat food and smoothies, and just is disgusting. So yeah, it's hard to distract yourself from anything to do with food or smells when you're sick. Reading a book made me feel sick too, so I don't actually have a lot of advice for that other than just lots of fresh air and staying away from triggers. So if you know that things like cigarette smoke is a trigger for you, or in my first pregnancy I had to walk past a bunch of bins on bin day on my way to work, so that was hard. But you just try and avoid whatever it is that's going to make you feel sick. Sometimes that means learning to be really assertive with people in your family who actually just don't get it. So, at one stage, like for me, even someone cooking a piece of toast can make me throw up. And if you've got people staying with you, like I did a little while ago when I was pretty sick, it can be a bit hard because they just forget. They don't, it's not that they don't take it seriously. It's just, people need to eat. They have to get on with their own lives. So they forget. So I think learning to be assertive and say to people, look, love to see you. Could you not wear that perfume? Because it makes me really sick. Happy to have you round for dinner, but I won't be able to join you. I'll be sitting in the corner having my custard or my up and go or whatever it was I was having at the time. So that's a bit hard, but if people know you and they love you, they should understand. And it's not something that you can hide. That's a difficult part of the illness as well, is that you end up telling people that you're pregnant a lot sooner than you would like to. I think the people in my family were starting to get a bit suspicious that I had gastro for 4 weeks. And look, I didn't mind telling people early because I just thought, well, it is what it is. But I think for people who want to wait until the end of that first trimester or even further, it is really, really hard because really all you can do is avoid people and make up excuses about why I can't go out for lunch and why I can't see them. So I think learning to accept some parts of the illness is better than trying to battle with it. For me, I've had this twice in both of my pregnancies. This current pregnancy, it's been a lot worse, which is generally kind of, how people say it goes. And, I really didn't want to take medication. Again, look, it was fine the first time, but I think like a lot of women, we don't really want to take anything in our pregnancy if we don't have to. We kind of look at the risk factors, try and weigh it up and go, is that really for me? Apart from the fact that, the medication I was taking, Zofran, it's $5 a pop. So as much as, your GP might say to you, yep, just keep taking them, as many as you need, or, take the prescribed dose or whatever it is that they're telling you to do. You usually, if you go to a GP, you get 4 tablets at a time, and it's a $20 prescription. So it's an expensive illness to have. But in saying that, for me, it was a good decision to take the medication because I looked at the risks for What if you don't take it and you just keep vomiting? And again, look, I'm not a medical doctor. You make your own informed decisions and do your own research. But for me, I found some research that indicated it's far worse for your baby and for your own body to be dehydrated and to not be getting anything into your system at all than it is to take the medication. So weigh it up, see what you think. For me, I couldn't possibly get through the day or the night not taking anything, and when you've already got a little person to look after, it makes it hard as well. So see what you think about that. Talk to people who can give you the right advice about it. Generally, if you've got hyperemesis, you're not going to manage without some sort of intervention anyway. It's not like other morning sickness where people are like, oh yeah, I was pretty sick, maybe I should have taken something for it. If you've got this illness, you know that you've got it because you're just so unwell. You know, I've been to hospital a couple of times, been put on an IV just because the dehydration gets to you more than anything. So you just have to do what you need to do to look after yourself and remember that it will pass eventually. As I said, I'm here 22 weeks and so far I think it's about a week or two without vomiting. So, you know, it will go away hopefully. But for some people it doesn't. For some people it lasts their whole pregnancy and they have it a whole lot worse than I have. In terms of coping and support, you know, there's not a lot out there. There really isn't. But there is one good forum. So if you go to, and I'll put the link below anyway, but if you go to helpher.org, there's a good forum about hyperemesis and support for it, and you might find just some tips about what has worked for other people. Again, there's very little research evidence, but you know, there's a few things. Like for me, when I could eat, I was eating like really weird preservative laden type foods that I wouldn't normally eat, and there is like a speck of evidence, maybe a tiny bit, that something to do with preservatives in, you know, like the McDonald's I was eating in the, you know, microwave dinners and 2-minute noodles and horrible stuff like that I can't even stand to look at now. Something about the preservatives makes some people feel better. But look, I think try anything if it makes you feel better, even if you can't find any research evidence as to why it's making you feel better and you can keep it down, just keep it down. You know, the healthy food will come later. It's better that you're eating something and you're getting something into your system. You know, when I had blood tests at, what was that, 10 weeks or something, I was 100% certain I was going to be told you've got anemia, your vitamin D is really low, everything's terrible, but it actually turned out to be fine. So the diet I was on at the time of up and going custard and the odd bit of maybe iron-enriched bread and not much else was enough, plus my multivitamin, which I was maybe keeping some of it down some of the time, was okay. So try and eat something, anything, doesn't matter what it is, worry about the healthy foods later. And I suppose another good tip I learned was even if you're throwing up water all the time, just keep sipping it because you absorb some liquid through your cheeks in your mouth anyway. So just keep hydrating yourself however you can. And, you know, sometimes getting alternative support outside of friends and family can be useful. It's not something that we talk about a lot in terms of pregnancy counselling, but this illness could make you feel pretty damn depressed. I mean, you can't go out and eat, so there's your social life gone. You're not feeling great about your body, you're worried about your baby because, you know, often people have this illness, you don't put on any weight in the first trimester and sometimes not much in the second trimester, and you can feel quite anxious about your baby and about your body and if everything's going okay. So another thing to consider is finding a supportive counsellor or a psychologist who's experienced in perinatal mental health, who can help support you through this, because it is, as I said, it's really difficult. You know, finding your assertive statements as well, whether you decide you want to educate people about this illness or not, but you will meet people who say, oh, have you tried ginger? I still can't stand ginger from my first pregnancy. And I think while people mean well, it's one of those things, I think, you know, like offering ginger to a woman who has hyperemesis is kind of like saying to an amputee, do you want a Band-Aid? Like, I think people who suggest that they mean well, but they just don't get it. They don't get the severity of how unwell you are. So make sure that you are heard, make sure that the people around you get it. If they need to see you with your head in the toilet 10 times a day, then they need to see it, because, you know, this is not something that's more brought on yourself, oh, you're just lazy, you can't be bothered. It really, really knocks you around. You know, you can't work, you can't see people, it's really hard. So try and do everything in your power to get the support that you need from the people around you, and if the people around you aren't supportive, get support elsewhere. Okay, if you want to get in contact about anything to do with pregnancy, perinatal health, clinical psychology, hypnobirthing, they're all kind of things I do, feel free to contact me in my details below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.